Have you got the basics of your swim technique dialed, but somehow hit a plateau in your progression? Don't worry, as this is all too common, because swimming is mostly technique. So rather than going and doing longer, harder, and more sessions, take a look at these tips on how you can take your swimming to the next level. Before we get to the tips, some cautionary advice. We have lots of things to work on in a swim stroke. But don't try and work on them all at once. Rather, watch this video, pick one or two that you feel you need to work on, go away, work on just those ones, and then you can come back and watch the video again before you pick up the next one. Because if you try and do them all at once, you're definitely going to run into some trouble. The first tip is to breathe out. Now you might think, wait, that's too simple. I just told you that I already have the basics dialed. Well, you may still not be breathing out enough. Let me explain. When you're swimming, you tend to take a breath and then hold your breath a little bit before you start exhaling. If you don't fully exhale, the next breath kind of goes on top and you only end up using the top third or so of your lungs, which is not a very efficient way of breathing. It can also leave you feeling very out of breath. That hypoxic feeling almost builds up within you. So it's really important that you fully exhale and empty your lungs before you do the next in-breath. Now, that full exhalation cannot happen in the last split second before you breathe in, which means you have to get the timing right. Generally, the best timing is to start breathing out almost immediately when your head goes back into the water and slowly trickle that breath out the whole time until just before you take your next inhalation, where you breathe out the last little bit out of your lungs, and then it's very easy to take that breath in. This relaxed breathing pattern will make the entire process of breathing seem far more relaxed, including the inhalation, because once your lungs are completely empty, that inhalation happens much more readily and much more easily than it does if you're just topping up the top third of your lungs. You can revisit the basics here to remind yourself what it feels like to breathe out slowly, known as a trickle breath. Hold onto the side of the pool, face in the water, and breathe out slowly, watching the bubbles. It can be quite relaxing. Also, try sinking mushrooms. Take a deep breath, tuck into a ball, and as you exhale, you'll gently sink to the bottom. To progress this into something closer to freestyle stroke, grab a pair of fins, push off the wall, keeping one arm extended and the other by your side, and just kick. Turn your head to breathe to the side that is open, where your arm is by your side. Focus on that continuous out breath, then simply turn to breathe as soon as you've finished emptying your lungs. When you return to the full stroke, you will obviously be limited by your turnover as to how long it takes between the out breath and that next breath in. But of course, you can choose how many strokes to do between each in-breath. The next tip is head position, although this could equally be called body position, as your head position affects your body position so much that the two are basically interchangeable, which is why it's so vital to get your head position correct. Now, most beginners will make the mistake of holding their head too high in the water. This is because of the mistaken belief that you need to keep your face as close as possible to that precious life-giving air. But this is a mistake. You need to put your face all the way in the water in order for those hips to come up and for you to have an ideal horizontal body position in the water. Try lying in the water with your head looking at the floor directly below you. Then move your gaze to just 2 to 3 meters in front of you on the floor, and that is the ideal head position. Essentially with the water line just above the level of your swim cap. Try swimming like this for your entire stroke, only rotating your head sideways, your chin to the air, and then back to that same position. Your head should not be moving all over the place while you swim. The next element to focus on is rotation, which brings together that head position and that breathing. In order to breathe efficiently, you need to rotate your body, particularly your hips, which will in turn rotate your shoulders and make your breathing significantly easier. Now, a common mistake that beginners make is to lift their head to breathe instead of turning their head to breathe. This obviously causes the hips to sink and your body position goes out, and it makes it less efficient, the actual breathing. So you need to turn your head to the side to breathe by turning your body, and not turn too far. Ideally, you want to just bring your mouth to just above the surface of the water and keep one of your goggles inside the water. This sounds straightforward, but it needs to be timed with your stroke. As you reach forward, you're going to cause a natural downward rotation on one side, which gives you the time and space to slightly turn your head to take that breath on the other side. You then, of course, need to breathe under that recovering elbow, and as the arm comes through, turn your head back towards the center line and that ideal head position again, rather than leaving it out there while you're already completed the recovery. The drill we practiced earlier with fins and breathing to one side is helpful for practicing this. Exaggerate the amount of rotation in your body as you take your breath, whilst keeping your head movement to a minimum. This can be progressed to single arm swimming. Keep the fins on and experiment between having one arm extended whilst pulling with the other arm and having one arm by your side whilst pulling with the opposite arm. Breaking down to just one arm will give you less to think about and more time to feel where your body is in the water. There are so many points to consider with front core, but we're going to round it up with hand entry. This will set up the perfect pull and rotation if you do it well. The points to consider: where you enter your hand and what you do with it as soon as it enters the water. So you want to enter the water in line with your shoulder. On a frontal plane, you don't want it to be too wide, and you also don't want it to be crossing over in front of you. It wants to be in line with your shoulder. You also want to enter just above your head, not reaching too far, but also not up here by your shoulder. Once your hand does enter the water, you want it to go forward and immediately start pulling down to initiate that catch phase. This will naturally cause your body to start rotating and begin that pull. That rotation that we spoke about earlier will be all initiated by that stroke. Again, the single arm drill you practice for rotation will work nicely on hand entry. Doing some swimming with finger paddles will highlight any wayward movements you might be making.
Before I go, let me reiterate what I said at the beginning. Work on these one or two at a time. Don't try and improve them all at once. And when it comes to working on technique, little and often is better than trying to do it all at once. And do these technique improvements early in your session when you're fresher, rather than later on when you're tired. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If it's given you some helpful tips, remember to hit that like button to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe for the rest of our swimming videos.